Domesday Book. It is the world's leading analysis of a pre-industrial society that allows us to recreate 11th century England's politics, government, and economy with greater precision than almost every other pre-modern nation. This introduces the question, what were the impacts of the Domesday Book that has affected 11th century England until modern times? Well, it certainly impacted England in various ways and still does until this day.
To begin, the creator of the book is King William I, also known as William the Conqueror and William the Bastard, who ruled from 1066 until his death in 1087. He is an intelligent and creative man for being the few who created records and of a pre-industrial society. So, why is it called Domesday Book? Well, the name Domesday Book originated from its illustrious status among the English, and it alludes to the Day of Judgment, as mentioned in Revelations. What was the reason behind the production of Domesday Book? Or perhaps there was a conflict? To start, William the Conqueror faced the most serious crisis of his life and reign in 1085. Of course, this occurred 2 decades after his famed invasion and conquest of 1066. For the next 20 years, he and his Norman followers colonized England. But by the 1080s, William's status as king seemed vulnerable. This was because his eldest son, Robert, was in revolt and courting allies in northern France for an assault on Normandy, while King Knut of Denmark was planning an invasion of England in collaboration with the Count of Flanders. The layout of the problem with Domesday Book was that there was an unhelpful reference to taxation logistics. Also, any tax official attempting to use this knowledge in this format may have easily lost hope, because historians know that calculating the tax burden of specific places will take days, even with modern technology.
Why was the Domesday Book made and what was it used for? The main event of creating the book was the Domesday Inquest. It was known that any landowner was summoned to testify before a jury of commissioner and local jurors. Landowners are believed to have attempted with differing degrees of success to load Domesday juries with clients that could be counted on to back with their verdicts. Once the inquest hearings were completed, each of their returns covers Cornwall, Devon, Somerset, Wiltshire, and Dorset, which have survived in its original form. Many scholars have said that the purpose of the survey was all about guild or property fee. As the Domesday Book exists for over 900 years and has been extensively researched for many decades, its scope for study is likely to appear fair. There should be nothing more than the facts. The structure of Domesday Book is to make it an extraordinary, effective instrument of political control. Importantly, it enshrines a radically new political principle that lay at the heart of the conqueror's regime, that the king claimed to be the source of all tenure. Also, it asserts that principle and makes it manageable. The king will also benefit from this by establishing a safer land tax base, tremendous political tool, and financial power over his barons. The Domesday Book is so important and valuable before, and still is now, because when massive quantities of land in England were conquered, they changed hands and had to keep track of these changes somehow. It's the first English document of administration, the first bureaucratic instrument in England, which played a very important role beyond the period of English bureaucracy. It's also the most detailed review of pre-industrial civilization in the world. It helps one to rebuild more accurately than almost any other pre-modern political culture will do in 11th century England's politics, administration, climate, and economy. In England's history, it is the single most valuable document. So how did it affect 11th century England? To begin, there were 3 main factors that the book was designed for, which was taxation, value of estate, and land ownership. For one, there was value of estate. It was used to record the value of the estates, which are land owned by individuals. A main fact to know about this, to understand more, is that the high values of urban properties, and in particular the money incomes to be, may have been more widespread in English towns during the Middle Ages. Another key factor is land ownership. Land ownership is very important because it's used to record the transfer and possession of individuals' property Many amounts of land were changed after the conquest in England, so we had to keep records of the change. After 1070, the land ownership grew and Norman England changed greatly. During that time period, it was common for land to be shared among many children. In addition, the Normans introduced us now to primogeniture, and that means that the oldest son in the family would inherit all the land. It would mean that the land would fall into the hands of fewer people, making things less complicated and easier to record and keep in the Domesday Book. The last key function for the Domesday Book is taxation. It's a new system that allows the king to raise more money from all landholders quickly and easily. William was careful about introducing this new system to the people, and he didn't demand too much, that the people would be angered by the new installation.
At last, King William's issues were resolved, with his retort being anticipated ferociously. According to the Anglo-Sax Chronicle, he assembled the greatest force of mounted men and infantry ever seen in England, forced his vassals to provision in the army each in proportion to his land, and scourged the coastline to keep his enemies from establishing a foothold as his own army had in 1066. The mood in England in 1085 must have been similar to that of 1588, when the Armada was on its way, or 1940, when Hitler's forces were preparing to invade. Following a thorough conversation with his council about this land, how it was invaded, or with what sort of inhabitants, he sent his men over all England into every shire to perform a survey. So nearly did he have it investigated, that there was no single hide of soil, nor indeed, it is a shame to relate, but it seemed no shame for him to do, one ox, one sheep, or one pig, which was there left out, and not set down in his records, according to the study. After collecting all of the surveys, he commissioned scribes to assemble them into a book divided into 2 volumes. Little Domesday Book, which covered Norfolk, Suffolk, and Essex, and Great Domesday Book, which covered most of the rest of England. How did William's achievement make a lasting impact? William the Conqueror was the one that created one of the most important documents ever written, the Domesday Book. We can show our appreciation for the achievements he had made by telling people about it. The Domesday Book is so important that many historians could dig up and find more evidence and facts about it. How did it affect today's modern civilization, or how is it relevant today? The Domesday Book is a familiar name to the people living in England today. It was the historical document that was known as the earliest public record. This document is so called the foundation of the National Archives and is evidence that shows the people that had title to land. In addition, it was used for administrative and legal purposes as such. Historians would agree that Domesday Book is very important for a starting point for their research about England. The book provides textual evidence of land obligations, right to tax, and military services. It was a landmark in the triumph of the centralized written record, one set down fixed forever, over evolving local oral traditions. It describes in remarkable detail the land holdings and resources of late 11th century England, demonstrating the power of the government machine in the first century of the new millennium, and its deep thirst for information.
To conclude everything stated, the Domesday Book is an important collection of documents compiled into a book that is textual evidence for land ownership, taxation, and value of estate during 11th century England. The conflict was that William the Conqueror was in a vulnerable position after being king, and he wanted to solve that by creating a Domesday Book to record information about the 3 key factors. Additionally, it's still relevant today because historians use the book to research about the land of England, and is proof for land rights and military services too. I like to think that William the Conqueror did a great job with planning and creating the book because therefore he knew every single detail and no enemies could disguise themselves into England. It's also better to keep all the important information into one place. Thank you.